What if human history is missing a chapter? In 1929, a map found in a Turkish library showed the coastline of Antarctica, centuries before it was discovered. But here's the shock. The map shows Antarctica without ice. Science says that view is at least 6,000 years old. So who mapped the frozen continent before civilization even began?
The story doesn't begin in the snow, but in the heat of Istanbul. In 1929, while renovating the Topkapi Palace, a German theologian named Gustav Deissmann found a scrap of gazelle skin parchment tucked away on a neglected shelf. It was a map painted in 1513 by the famed Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. On the surface, it was a beautiful relic of the Age of Discovery, but as scholars looked closer, their blood ran cold. The map depicted the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and, most impossibly, a landmass to the south that looked exactly like the Queen Maud Land coast of Antarctica. Here is the problem. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820. Piri Reis had drawn it 300 years too early. Even more unsettling was the level of detail. The map didn't just show a vague southern blob, it showed bays, islands, and mountain ranges. When modern researchers compared the Piri Reis map to seismic profiles of the Antarctic ground underneath the ice sheet, they found a near-perfect match. Piri Reis had written a note on the margin of his map. He admitted he wasn't the original creator. He had compiled his chart from 20 older source maps, some of which dated back to the era of Alexander the Great. This suggests a terrifying conclusion. Thousands of years ago, someone had mapped the Antarctic coastline while it was free of ice. Part 2. The fingerprints of a lost science. To understand why this is a scientific glitch in the matrix, we have to look at the ice. According to standard geology, the Antarctic ice sheet is millions of years old. Yet the maps, not just the Piri Reis map, but others, like the Orens-Finet map of 1531 and the Bausch map of 1737, show the continent with flowing rivers and jagged mountain peaks. In 1960, Professor Charles Hapgood of Keene State College took these maps to the U.S. Air Force 8th Reconnaissance Technical Squadron. The response he received was historic. The military experts confirmed that the lower portion of the maps showed the coast of Antarctica consistent with the seismic profile, indicating the coastline had been mapped before it was covered by the ice cap. This leads us to a fork in the road of human history. Either our dating of the Ice Age is wrong, or a high-tech civilization existed during the last glacial maximum, a civilization capable of spherical trigonometry. Mapping a continent requires the ability to calculate longitude. Human history tells us that we didn't master the measurement of longitude until the invention of the marine chronometer in the 1700s. Yet these ancient source maps used by Piri Reis suggest that a Sea King civilization was traversing the globe with precision instruments while the rest of humanity was supposedly chipping flint into arrowheads. Part 3. The Orens-Finet Enigma. If the Piri Reis map was a shock, the Orens-Finet map of 1531 is a full-blown crisis for historians. While Piri Reis showed only the coastline, Finet drew the entire continent. The map shows Antarctica as a massive landmass at the pole, but with a startling feature. It is divided by great rivers. These rivers are positioned exactly where modern subglacial surveys have found deep trenches and valleys. The center of the continent is shown as a mountainous interior, free of the massive dome of ice that currently stands 3 miles high. How is this possible? Some fringe researchers suggest Earth crustal displacement, the idea that the entire outer shell of the Earth shifted, moving Antarctica from a temperate zone to the South Pole in a matter of centuries. Others point to a golden age of seafaring that was wiped out by a global cataclysm, perhaps the same Great Flood mentioned in the myths of over 500 different cultures.
Imagine a world where the Antarctic was green, where the mountains of madness weren't buried in white but stood as landmarks for ancient sailors. The maps are the footprints of these ghosts. Part 4. What lies beneath? Today, Antarctica is the most mysterious place on Earth. Underneath the ice lie over 400 subglacial lakes, such as Lake Vostok, which has been sealed off from the atmosphere for millions of years. Scientists believe these lakes could contain prehistoric life forms, or perhaps something else. In recent years, satellite imagery, Google Earth archaeologists, have claimed to find pyramids poking through the snow in the Ellsworth Mountains. While geologists dismiss these as nunataks, natural mountain peaks shaped by erosion, the ancient maps give us reason to pause. If the maps are real, then there were people there. And if there were people there, there were cities, temples, and records. The secret of the maps is that they don't just show us where Antarctica was, they show us who we were. They suggest that the human story is much older and much more advanced than we are taught in school.
Part 5. Operation Highjump and the Military Mystery. The maps provided the coordinates, but it wasn't until after World War II that the world's superpowers began to take the Antarctic secret seriously. In 1946, the United States Navy launched Operation Highjump. On the surface, it was a standard scientific expedition. In reality, it was a massive military task force, 4,700 men, 13 ships, and 33 aircraft, led by Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Why send a carrier battle group to a wasteland of ice? Byrd, a seasoned explorer, reportedly encountered things that defied the physics of the time. Upon his return, he gave a cryptic interview to the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio, warning that the United States should take defensive measures against enemy flying objects that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. While skeptics argue Byrd was talking about Soviet threats, the timing was suspicious. Rumors began to swirl that the Nazis, obsessed with the same ancient maps we've discussed, had established a base in Neuschwabenland, Queen Maud Land. They believed Antarctica was the gateway to the Hollow Earth, or the remnants of Atlantis. If the Piri Reis map showed that the continent was known in antiquity, the military's sudden obsession in the 1940s suggested that someone had found more than just a map. They were looking for the technology of the people who drew them. Part 6. The Wilkes Land Anomaly. In 2006, NASA satellites detected a massive gravitational anomaly in the Wilkes Land region of Antarctica. Hidden under a mile of ice is a 300-mile-wide mass concentration. To put that in perspective, the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs was tiny compared to whatever is sitting under the Wilkes Land ice. Scientists call it an impact crater, but some researchers look back at the ancient maps and wonder, is this the engine of the crustal shift? Or is it the remains of a city so vast it creates its own gravitational pull? The maps of Arendt's Find show that this specific region of Antarctica was once home to a massive mountain range and a fertile plain. If a civilization lived there and a cataclysm hit, their entire world would have been flash frozen in a matter of days. We aren't just looking at ice, we are looking at a planetary tomb. Part 7. The Blood Falls and Forbidden Biology. As we move deeper into the secrets, we find the Blood Falls of the Taylor Glacier. A deep red, iron-rich liquid seeps out of the ice like an open wound. For years, it was a mystery, but recently, scientists discovered that the water comes from a time capsule lake trapped 5 million years ago. This lake is teeming with microbes that have evolved in total darkness, without oxygen. This proves that life can survive the harshest alien conditions. If microbes can survive for millions of years, what about the artifacts of the map makers? The ancient maps depict Antarctica not as a dead zone, but as a living heart of the world.
Modern sonar has recently mapped monoliths and symmetrical structures deep under the Ross ice shelf. They are too geometric to be natural rock. They look like the foundations of the very harbors Piri Reis drew in 1513. Part 8. The conclusion. The map to our future. The secrets of Antarctica's ancient maps leave us with a choice. We can believe that Piri Reis, Arentz Fine, and Philippe Boucher all had lucky guesses about a continent they had never seen, guesses that happened to perfectly match the subglacial topography discovered 400 years later. Or we can accept the uncomfortable truth. Human civilization is a cycle, not a straight line. Before the Great Freeze, there was a global society. They were masters of the sea and the stars. They knew the Earth was a sphere, and they mapped it with a precision we only regained in the 20th century. Antarctica is not just a continent of ice, it is a vault. The maps are the key that was left behind in the libraries of the Old World. As the ice continues to melt due to climate change, the secrets these maps hinted at are beginning to poke through the white veil. From the pyramids of the Ellsworth Mountains to the gravity anomalies of Wilkes Land, the Earth is revealing a past that we're not prepared for. We aren't the first high-tech masters of this planet. We are merely the latest. And as the maps show, the ice is the only thing keeping the ghosts of our ancestors buried. The next time you look at a globe, look at the bottom. That white void isn't empty. It's a library of lost history, waiting for the sun to melt the cover off the book. The ancient maps were right all along. The question is, are we ready to meet the people who drew them?